Hello, good evening. Hopefully we're live. Hopefully you can hear me okay. So far it looks okay. All of the settings are telling me everything's fine. So yeah, welcome to the workshop again. Right, this is the spoon then that we're working on, as anyone who's been following us will have seen. And today now we're going to carry on working on it. Got a few other ideas in terms of this sort of surround. I've been talking about what we're going to do with that. I've got an idea possibly do one side rough, one side smooth. The idea of the rough and the smooth. You know, this year being a difficult year in life, in married life, and all the different things. You have rough times, you have smooth times. So, I get straight into it. I'll start doing some carving. We're just going to carry on just shaping this twist around. Yeah, just to continue shaping that twist. My hope is today to have a little look at the birds, the dove and the phoenix. Couldn't remember the name for a second there. So that's the idea, is to have a look at those symbols and to see how they're getting on. I can see I got a message there, I think that's from Yully. I can see a positive looking symbol, so hopefully everything is going okay. So you can hear and see, no problem. So we're just shaping around there. I think actually, yeah, change my mind. I'm going to start off working on that dove. So we'll start off doing our stop cuts on the tail. So again, for anyone who's learning carving, you do your stop cuts, and then afterwards you use those stop cuts as a barrier. Those sort of basic principles of wood carving. As always, for those of you who sort of follow our channel, follow what we're up to, we're in the process of filming some more videos. I've been working yesterday on one to do with scroll sawing again. We've been having a little bit of fun as well, some different ones for wood carving. We've got a beginner's wood carving one coming out soon. We've also got a beginner's scroll sawing one coming out soon as well. They're well on their way. In the process of working on the video yesterday then, interesting little skill where Dad was showing a method that he used to use for making dowel. So that's going to be in that scroll saw video, but I think we're also going to do a standalone video showing different ways of making dowel. We've done another one recently where we were looking at a beginner's set of wood carving chisels. I bought an inexpensive set. They're just behind me here. These ones here. So we bought a nice set of those, had a little go then at carving with those, and yeah, we're going to do a video showing you how we got on. I can see we've got a few comments. Excuse me from the bench 2 seconds, I'm going to go and check them, because I haven't got Thomas the Woodcarver with us. 2 minutes. Oh, hello there, young does. Yeah, great to hear. Lovespoon. Brilliant. Oh, great, good to hear from you. That's somebody I know you've been following our channel for a long time, and yeah, great to hear from you, and thank you for supporting our channel, because I know you've supported us for a long time. So yeah, great to hear from you, and thanks for your ongoing support. Really is much appreciated. As you can see, we're just shaping this one here. We're just getting the shape of our dove that we want. The dove, why that's on there, symbol of hope, hope and peace, that sort of thing is the idea behind it, but it's mainly on this one for hope. It's a symbol that we use quite a lot, actually. We use it on everything from Christmas decorations to love spoons, all sorts of different ways we've used it. And then the phoenix, of course, the idea, the phoenix rises from the ashes. So hopefully out of this difficult year, we will see a rising from the ashes and a positive future for us all. But it's basically, that is sort of in keeping with the theme of our Lovespoon. It's a message of hope. That's what we're trying to get through. Now this one, a bit of Sycamore, as we mentioned a couple of times, and it's carving, yeah, carving nicely. I don't know if Dad's been doing a bit of sharpening on the gouges, but it certainly seems to be cutting really well. So you can see what we do. We sort of get our shape, our outline that we want. We use those stop cuts so we can use them as a barrier. Shape all of the outside, and then afterwards we can do a little bit of detail. We will also, in between times, we'll do some sanding on it as well. So it's just to give a little bit more of a three-dimensional feel to something that, of course, we're working on in 2 dimensions. We're also working on shaping the outside. As I said, we've got a new idea to possibly finish this spoon, and that's to do one side of the spoon more smooth and the other side then a little bit more rough. So it's the, you know, to depict the idea of what we have in life. You have the rough and you have the smooth. And of course we got that lock at the bottom, the padlock, to represent lockdown. Interesting point we can highlight as well for anybody learning carving. When I've carved the outline here, we've carved up there. This is what we sort of refer to as the critical point. So once you get beyond that critical point, you have to turn around and work the other way. So I'll highlight it now for you all to see. What happens, that's just about the critical point there. So when we're carving, because of the direction of the grain, you get all those fibres in the grain. They all line up. So when you're carving this way, you're carving with the grain. If I try and carve that way, I'd be carving against the grain and we'd be getting resistance. So it's all about reading the grain, finding out where that critical point is and making sure that you're carving all the time with the grain. So I'll highlight now, I'll turn the spoon round so you can see where we need to then carve in the opposite direction. Just going to finish off just shaping that bit. And it's nice. All the time you see the shape of the spoon coming out. I'll just turn it around just to highlight that point. If you stand to carve, you don't have to worry about it too much. You can just walk around the other side and continue carving. But if you sit to carve like myself, you turn it round in the vise, and that means from a safety point of view, you're always cutting away from yourself. So it makes it safer. You're less likely to get any cuts, any nicks, that sort of thing. So you can see, by turning it round in the vise, I'm still carving with the grain. So it makes life a lot easier. Same again this side. We're beyond that critical point where the grain changes direction. And we're just working with the grain. All of those fibres lining up nicely. And as you develop your carving skills, as you do more wood carving, it's really nice. You'll feel the difference when you're working with the grain and when you're working against it. And it's a nice feeling working with the grain. When you're not carving with the grain and you're getting that resistance, yeah, it's not so much fun. Sometimes, of course, it's unavoidable. You know, depending on the wood. There you go. Do as I say, not as I do. I started carving towards myself. That's a little bit of laziness where I should have really turned it round in the vise. But there we are. For this demonstration, we're trying to make progress as quick as we can as well. But yeah, it's that process of learning the grain for anyone who's interested in learning wood carving. Terrible demonstration, shouldn't be doing that when I'm carving towards myself, but it's just speeding things up a little bit. Now we just carve around the outside, create like a silhouette. Hello Thomas, we've got Thomas the woodcarver with us again.
Good evening.
There we are. He's built me a fire here, so he's keeping us warm. Because it's started to get colder, but still quite warm for the time of year, isn't it?
Well, there's a cold wind blowing there tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is a nice wood carving and Lovespoon carving. Great thing to get into in the sort of cold winter's evenings. There There we are. So we're getting this shape.
We'd be able to burn as well, see?
Yeah, that's right. And the more mistakes you got, the more firewood you got then.
Yeah.
There we are. So we're just getting that shape. Just looking, do I want to... Yeah, I'm going to finish shaping around the top of the dove. And then I'm going to sand it. That'll be the next sort of part of the process.
Well, so we got the dove. So what's the... I can see the lock. So what's the carving on the...
Yeah, we're just explaining that one. It's the phoenix.
Ah,
the
right.
phoenix rises from the ashes. So the hopes are... Because it's not been a very wonderful year, is it? But it's hoped from the sort of...
That's right. It's interesting. We've used that symbol before, haven't we?
Yes. I tell you where we used that one. We used it back in 2011. Back to when we... No, was it 2010? We'll have to check the back of the spoon. It was basically, we were recording the rescue of the Chilean miners. I think it's 2010.
2010?
Yeah. So we were recording that year. The rescue of the Chilean miners. Don't know if anybody else remembers that one. They were trapped underground, and the escape capsule that brought them back to the surface... Ooh, I'm throwing things around. It was called the Phoenix. And the Phoenix, again, rises from the ashes.
Which is... it's a nice little bonus, really, because we make a spoon every year, one special one to keep. Over the years, then you've got a diary of events, haven't you? That are,
Yeah, we have.
You know, not necessarily.
Well, it's something, to be honest, we need to have a little look at. I think we maybe put, you know, because we've got the YouTube channel, I don't know, we'll have to put it in the comment section. Is it something everybody be interested in us going through? Is to do some videos where we share the stories of our spoons. We did a video on it, the secret life of Lovespoons, but we didn't. There was a lot of stories that we didn't sort of share.
And of course, what will be important to us will not be perhaps so important to another person.
No,
so that's why the Lovespoon is unique. That you know you can record your own.
And for anybody
interest, then.
Yeah, exactly. And for anybody out there then who's doing their own spoons, it's something that we always say: record things through your work. You know, regardless, whatever work that you're doing, tell stories, portray messages through the work that you're doing. It gives it a lot more interest, doesn't it?
If anybody's interested, you know, they can send us a message and ask us what we did for a particular years. Yeah. Starting from 1969, isn't it?
Yeah, 1969 was the year that we did our first spoon. But yeah,
it may be, you know, a particular year we didn't record a specific news item.
Well, as well, when we've had people in, people will ask us, "How did you record?" I'm trying to think of an incident. Things like when they took down the Berlin Wall.
Yeah,
we didn't actually record it because. Obviously, you know, whilst those events were massively significant, it wasn't what we were recording. You know, it didn't fit in then with the story for that year. I'm trying to think of other examples. There've been loads of big events that we sort of haven't recorded, but it's because they sort of, if they do tie in or don't tie in, with what we're recording. Here we go.
But it's certainly a nice way of
one we get asked a lot about, and of course here in Wales it's a bit of a sore point at the moment, isn't it? Is we get asked a lot. Did we do a Lovespoon for when Wales won a Grand Slam and things like that?
Yeah, we avoid things like that.
And so we've always avoided it because as they're having a bit of a rough patch at the moment, that's what happens. We've always avoided it because you have good times, you have bad times. And of course in sport as well, stuff like that, the wooden spoon has sort of other connotations, doesn't it? So we've stayed well away from that. There we are. So I've got our basic shape on there. And to give a little bit of detail, we sanded it quite nice and smooth, just to give a little bit of detail. I think we have an eye for our dove. So you can see to do that, I'm just using a spike and to just put that eye on there. Just want a few little tail feathers as well. So we're going to do one like that. And I'm going to do one going that way. And then the other one roughly in the centre. And this is what we're doing. You know, I don't want anything too sort of fancy, nothing too complicated about it, but it just finishes off the carving quite nicely. Do you think we should do a few feathers on the wing? Or?
Oh yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. We do a few little feathers just to add a little bit of detail. But it's one of those things where I suppose this is as well. It depends what mood you're in. Sometimes you're looking to make things a little bit more complicated. Sometimes you're happier just to keep things a bit more simple. I think tonight I'm in a more simplistic mood.
Yeah.
Simplistic mood even. Yeah, so I'm keeping things a bit more simple. But there we are. Just a few little lines just to add a little bit of detail. I think as well those lines will help because our dove, it is a more simple impression of a dove, as the phoenix is generally a little bit more. There we are. All I'm doing there, probably just went out of shot, I'm just using the reverse angle of the gouge. Something that you can do. You know, whilst normally you would cut like that, don't be afraid, experiment, try different things with your carving. Sometimes we cut using the reverse angle. Try things. It can be useful in certain situations. Now then, I think we'll move across and we'll start doing, just refocus us. I do that just to keep the live view going. Yeah, we'll go over the other side and we'll do a little bit of work on our phoenix. And this then, I think those extra little bits of detail will help us on the dove, because generally the phoenix is a more elaborate bird. There we are. So we just start off on the beak first of all. So that's giving us the depth that we're going to work to. That's quite a, I tell you what I'm going to use. Yeah, we got a little, this one here, this is a chisel, this one. It's actually Japanese, this one.
Yeah.
You got some writing on there. Very expensive if you go to buy these new, yeah. But we were fortunate enough to get these sort of second hand, and they are quite sort of useful gouges, because as you can see, the chisels, sorry, because the gouges that I've got, that space there is a little bit too small to get into, but this chisel, it can just about do it. So they are useful. So it's interesting. That's why we've always sort of accumulated more and more gouges, because you never know when they'll come in useful. We've been doing that recently, as I said, that video talking about, you know, beginners gouges, and without spoiling that video, you know, we always say you can get into carving in a relatively inexpensive way and a relatively simple way.
Well, people just, they use a penknife, don't they? They call
well, that's right.
Whittling.
Whittling, yeah, you can just whittle away. No rules or regs, all sorts of different ways to do it. So what I've done there, I've just started off by working on the eye and the beak, and that's to gives us the depth in the carving. But it also then, as we start to bring down, you know, the depth here, we've got those guidelines in place. When we carve, we're losing those guidelines to follow. So by keeping those in place, we've got something to follow. There we are. We're just going to shape now the wing, and it's a matter of giving it that little bit of depth to the carving itself. We just look at that. We just go back to that beak, because as we're giving depth to the rest of the carving, it just requires us to give that part of the carving a little bit more depth. Again, it's the same. I go back over the eye. So you can see it's a method again that you can consider using is to sort of work in stages. So you keep those lines in. So what I've done, I've carved this once, started to work on the depth, and then I've carved it again. So I've got those guidelines to follow all the time. Just makes life easier especially if you're not so artistic.
Is this a message? Young does?
Yeah, that's somebody who's supported our channel for several years, and
Great to be here live. Love the spoon. Can't wait to see it finished.
Yeah.
We.
yeah, we're at that stage now where we want the spoon
Cheers
done.
from Bettis and Rose, North Wales.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's that's somebody who's supported our channel for many years, actually, for several years. So yeah, good to hear. And good to know you're watching. I know Yully's there as well, keeping an eye. She checks for me that everything is working as it should be. Because the joys of doing live stream, it does have a tendency from time to time to go a bit wrong. Yeah, I think we're well on our way though with this Lovespoon to getting it completed. Still got a fair bit of work, but it is certainly taking shape quite nicely. It's a nice piece of wood to work in. Sycamore is not one that we use a lot, not because there's anything wrong with it for carving. We just don't have a lot of it coming through. It tends to be one of a timber that's not the easiest for seasoning, isn't it?
Yeah, seasoning. Some people
it has a
tell me
black streak in it sometimes,
to
doesn't it?
season it's better to stand it on end.
Yeah.
How true that is, I really don't know.
Yeah, what it is, 'cause
experiment with different ways.
Well, we've always had issues with it in terms of seasoning it, where you get like a black streak running
like
through it.
soot, isn't it?
Yeah, and so the reason they say then store it vertically is because that it goes out of the pores and sinks to the bottom.
Right.
Whether that works, we should try it. We'll have to experiment. But it's basically, if you look at a sycamore tree, you quite often see on the leaves what they refer to as a tar spot, and it's again pollution. It's like the true London plane. They say has got a black streak running through it because it was pulling the smog out of the atmosphere. Just checking, are we still in shot there? I think so.
Yeah, I think so.
There we are. So you can see we've done a lot of work on the head then and the top of the wing, and now we're just turning this round and we're going to shape it in the opposite direction. Check that again, that we're nicely in shot. Yeah, we are. There we are. So we're just shaping that all the time. The idea, you're working with the grain as much as possible. And we'll do similar then as we've done with the dove. We'll sand it, so that'll shape it a little bit further for us. Just to do that little bit at the bottom, I just need a smaller gouge.
It's an ideal gift as well for coming up to Christmas, isn't it, really? A Lovespoon. You know, you can... am I allowed to say that you're doing Christmas gifts as well?
Yeah, we're doing all sorts. Yeah, we are. We're doing all sorts. We got a few...
Because years ago, you see, people made wooden items as gifts for Christmas, you know, especially children's toys.
Yeah, well, that's one of the ones that we're working on at the moment. So hopefully that'll be interesting. We're doing all sorts of sort of traditional ideas. So yeah, watch this space, because we've got a few. I've been working on a few different things. To be honest with you, with everything that's happened with lockdown and the situation that's changed, where we've gone from having thousands of people through the workshop to only a few hundred, whilst that's difficult and not ideal, not what we really want, it has allowed us to do all sorts of different things. You got another message on there? So, there we are.
Oh, it's a thumbs up from Yolanda.
Oh, good. I thought she might have been shouting at me and telling me I'm going too slowly or something, so... There we are. So we've nearly got the shape sorted. And as I said, I think we're going to do... I've got an idea. We'll see. I'll probably have changed my mind by next week, because that's what tends to happen with these things. But I think we're going to do this side rough and this side smooth to represent the idea that rough and smooth in life. An idea that Thomas the Woodcarver first put on his It was your wedding spoon, wasn't it? Back in 1971, the rough and smooth of married life. And that's what we do. See, all sorts of little stories and messages through the work we do. I think I'm going to use that one there. Now, interestingly, there we are. That was the first one I went to pick up. But that one, I'm going to have to give that to Dad. It probably won't show up on camera. There's a little tiny nick. Only a tiny little feather edge. That is, you know, it could have been a little bit of grit or a little flaw in the metal. Tiny nick. But the problem is...
it definitely needs...
Yeah, so it needs resharpening and rehoning. Problem is, if I go and use that one to carve, it'll put a little line, and especially because we got the light in, because you got the lights on, I'll notice it more so. It'll put a little line in the carving. So it's making work for us. Because it needs rehoning. So there we are. Thomas Woodcarver's immediately to work here, and he's setting out to rehone it. But we probably put it on the Tormek in next door as well, just to get that tiny little nick out. And that's what happens. Sometimes if you're carving away, especially if you're learning, sometimes you'll be looking at it and not knowing what's happened. If you start to see little lines appearing in your carving, it's because there's a feather edge, tiny little nick. So just get it on a whatever sharpening system that you've got, and sharpen it up, just to take that nick back out. There we are. So really, we're making some good progress on that. This has been a sort of simple bird themed demonstration, this one. I like carving birds, I like carving animals as well.
I confuse everybody now. I just started to hone it.
There we are. So
that's the little slipstone I'm using.
There we go.
Working away.
Yeah, back to what we've been carving, and just looking now what I've been carving. We've done some cats, some dogs, a mermaid, a werewolf. I'll show you a few of the. There we are. These are some of the bespoke spoons that we've been working on over the last, couple of weeks. There we are. We've got things like that one there. So those are some of the ones that we've been working on over the last few weeks. Right. Let's get this Phoenix smooth down a little bit. And we're using the sandpaper that we're using to do this. Is just a P120.
Very carefully, rub your finger down there, Dave, just to show.
Let's check. We've got a burr on there. There's a little bit of a burr, especially on that corner.
Yeah.
Was that where the nick was?
No,
There's a good burr on there, though. That's what you're looking for. See, when you're sharpening, you get that little burr on the inside. Take it off, and then afterwards you can strop it on either a piece of leather, a bit of cloth, anything like that. We use, as I said, the Tormek, and we put that on. There's a wheel where you can actually hone it on the wheel itself. Here we are. I'm quite pleased with how this is progressing. I'm going to refocus that camera one more time just in case. Just like so. And then we're going to do a little bit of detail on the Phoenix itself as well. There we are. That's the gouge just been rehoned. So just taking that nick out. So that's all been sorted out for us. And when we're doing this as well, whilst we do sort of come in where we got a loose plan, with this sort of carving, quite honest, we're improvising. I haven't sort of got a set idea as such for what I wanted the dove and the phoenix to look like, and that's quite often what you do. And basically, it's like, for instance, I'm going to try doing this. If it sort of works out and I'm happy with it, great. We'll leave it. If you're not, then just try something different. Carve it deeper. Carve out what you've done. Carve it deeper into the woods, and try something different. Probably better off. I might be better off there. I'm going to come back the other way as well, just to shape, just to give it the effect of a couple of tail feathers. I would ask Thomas Woodcarver what his thoughts are on it, but he very rarely says that it's any good, so I won't ask. Right, these ones I think I'm going to go the other way. It's just to give it that little bit extra detail. That's basically what I'm doing. Let's have a look. That one there, just come in there, just like so. I think as well, yeah, I'm going to take that out of there. That out of there. It's creating that feel of it being quite intricate and detailed, but in reality it's a relatively sort of simple carving. But because you just added those extra little bits to it, when people look at it, it looks very sort of detailed and very intricate. That's what you're trying to create. We used to have well, Dad used to say to me, you're sort of trying to get the maximum effect for the minimum amount of work, which I know sounds bad in a way, because it sounds as if sounds as if you're cheating, but you're not. You're getting the best effect for the work that you do. As they say in other things, you don't get paid for doing extra, really, do you? In terms of with work like this, it's creating that effect of it being
you've got to be satisfied. You're not just trying to do
the bare minimum.
The bare minimum. You want to know that it's going to look. It's going to turn out the way you intended it to.
Yeah, absolutely.
Turn out.
But it's creating that effect in the nicest possible way, without sort of adding to the extras to the work that you sort of don't need, because there's enough work without sort of making it more difficult for ourselves.
And it's good as well. It's it's a half an hour. You're testing your patience. I know I've sharpened this chisel. I'd love to have a go at carving the bowl of that spoon, but I know you won't let me.
Go for it.
No, I'm not going to spoil that.
There we are.
I'm going to. I'll test the chisel out.
Right, now then.
On something else.
I think that's looking pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. I think that'll do us for today. Yeah, I'll just sand off a little bit there, just where it's just caught the grain a little bit. So you can see how just adding those extra feathers, I think it does really add an extra element to it. And by putting those feathers in the dove, yeah, it just balances it out a little bit, because we don't want this to look very intricate and that to then look very, very plain. We have to sort of balance it. What I'll do as well, I'll turn it round in the vise so everybody can see the progress that we made. As always, thank you all for watching. We'll be back next week, 5 o'clock, with another live stream, so you'll be able to see how we're getting on. And yeah, we've got other videos coming up, so keep an eye out on the channel for those. Any final thoughts from you, Thomas Woodcarver?
No, I'm just going to tidy it up a bit now.
There we are. He's going to sort it out so it's